The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Return the Jewels. Also, there's explicit language. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Return the Jewels. Today we have a very special episode. Our guest is Chef Francis Smalling. He's Filipino. He immigrated here when he was 9 to Queens, grew up in Queens, around all sorts of diversity, around all sorts of food, flavors, everything. We talk about a lot of cool things and we get into a lot of subjects that you probably wouldn't hear from professional chefs. And one thing we really talk about is flavor profiles and the narrative structure involved, or the underlying narrative structure involved in creating and balancing flavor profiles, and how certain people may have a monopoly on the market of curating those flavor profiles. And we really get into it. It's a really good episode. I hope you enjoy it. So his name is Francis Smalling. You can find him at Bad Business Pop-Ups, which is his company. And so this episode is coming out Wednesday, the 21st, and on Saturday, second, third, fourth, the 5th, 25th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's 3, plus 21, that's 4, 23rd, Friday, Saturday. So the 24th, I can just look at my calendar. Hold on. So Saturday, the 24th, check out his Instagram information for Bad for Business Pop-Ups. And you can find him on Instagram at Instagram Frans. That's FRANS. Info right here. And, enjoy the episode.
So we're good. Okay, so we're not.
Oh yeah. Wait, do your pre-orders.
So let's
Saturday,
start.
or show up. I think it's in the Lower East Side.
Hey everyone, we're here with Francis Smalling. Did I say that right?
Malling.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, Malling. No, you're good.
I gotta ask because I know that the people that watch, I guess the people that will be watching this show, how many people watch now, probably get their names butchered a lot. And so, just that simple follow-up, I think, is always sometimes maybe necessary.
It was mailing for the first 4 years, coming to New York. And, that was Catholic school kind of thing. I don't know why.
When did you? So you were not born in New York.
Nope.
Where were you born?
Born in the Philippines. I'm a Queens kid, though. I'm raised here, and New Yorker at heart. But my heart still kind of calls back home every now and then because born and raised in the Philippines too.
How old were you when you moved?
Came here when I was 9, 1998.
So
1998. Yeah.
You and our mutual friend, Chef Harold, this is how I met you. Is I think he came to South Bronx when he was 9 from the Philippines as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
maybe that's that magic number or something.
Yeah, maybe 9. Maybe 9 is the number, just to absorb enough of the culture, and then absorb the culture here.
Yeah.
And bring everyone back to the culture you absorbed initially.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of a transition, man. Because coming here when I was 9, I could barely recall how life was in the Philippines.
Really?
But when I got here to JFK, I could still remember the song that was playing as we were checking back on the BQE Grand Central kind of travel, and it was Next, Too Close.
Yo, I saw them in concert in Mississippi when I was that age. Yeah, and they did Too Close.
So I was 9, bumping to the song, and I'm like, all right, kind of cool kind of song. And I didn't know it was about sex, this dude's getting, hard on, and I'm like, wait, really? That's what it was?
I feel a little poke coming through.
Yeah. So it was a culture
This is
shock,
not
and it
subtle at all.
culture shock. Like, I never listened to hip hop when I was like younger. All
Yeah.
that stuff kind of came into play, like, being here in New York. So kind of cool and kind of adapt.
So you so culture shock, meaning you come here and I guess you don't, yeah, so you don't remember much pre 9 years old, I would imagine. It's more like, I would think it's not, you don't necessarily remember many like conversations, but you probably remember like colors, environments, different people maybe, things
Yeah,
like
for
that.
sure.
So like what, like growing up, well, no, okay, 9 years old. 9 years old, you're pretty formed as a person.
I
So
mean,
like,
I had some vivid memories. Like,
yeah.
I was alive like when I was 9. I did shit. Like, it
I was
wasn't
living,
like,
dog.
yeah, I was living. Like,
Uh,
I lived in the arcades as a kid, playing video games, ate good food, fast foods, like, shout out to
so
Jollibee.
this is in the Philippines. So like, what? Yeah,
This is the
what
Philippines.
was it?
Yeah.
What was your kid culture like? You went to the arcades. You ate fast food. What?
I was like a smart ass.
Yeah.
I was like a smart kid
Aren't you a smart ass
who
now?
was like kind of, but like I'm a smart ass that's like just an ass. Um, yeah, into video games, like played heavy like fighting games back in the day.
Fighting games. Okay. So with
Ate
cousins and
good,
shit.
ate good food. Like that was like my life, like as a kid.
So let's talk. Okay, I guess let's talk about eating good food as a kid.
Yeah,
If you don't already know, I mean, we do this in the intro.
yeah.
Francis Maling is a very professional chef, and we'll get into his resume and everything. But food is your life, and we when we talked earlier, we had a long conversation about. Well, I mean, I guess just about food, and we're gonna get more into it. But so eating good food growing up, right? I guess, were you just like hovering in the kitchen all the time and you're just absorbing these techniques, or did that came later in life?
So it's crazy. Like when you think of somebody who grows up with food, you're gonna imagine, childhood growing up with like grandmother or like
Um,
somebody in your family kind of teaching you like the ropes. It wasn't like that for me. I kind of just I was around food, just
yeah.
ate a lot. I was a fat kid.
Okay.
Um, Never learned the techniques and all that stuff until like later on, like professionally.
Yeah, we
But
all, I think we were all fat kids.
yeah. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, it was like food was just
Mm.
a
So you didn't
sign
have
of
a
like
quality filter on the food
no,
you took in. So a lot
no,
of
not
fast.
at all. Like my grandmother, my Lola, like, that's what we call her. She cooked a lot because I grew up with my cousins like in this like big house in the Philippines. She had to cook for like everybody. But
Wow.
yeah, I never helped chop onions or like
Right.
cut vegetables like for helping like with family dinner. Like I never did any of that.
You never cared. I mean, yeah, my mom cooked all the time, and I didn't really
Yeah,
know anything about it until I was in like
yeah.
college or
But
later.
I think all that sort of changed when I got into the industry because now you get to understand where food is not just food. It becomes a focal point in conversations or you know maybe in celebrations
Yeah.
or get-togethers or you know today like my friend is getting married, so just some sort of like blessing. Um, and I think for you to gauge food in that way, you're you're learning more about yourself and you're learning more about life.
So growing up, you eat a lot of food, right? We all know you, so we know you have an appreciation for food. You come here at 9, right? You listen to this raunchy ass song on the way to your new life. Now you're a kid, 9 years old, so I'm assuming you go right into like what, lower, like fourth grade or something. But kids,
Yeah, So
So
I mentioned I was like a smart kid. I was
yeah,
supposed to advance to the fifth grade because the curriculum in the Philippines is a little more advanced, like the
yeah.
Western culture. Um, I don't know, for some reason I think I was just like, I'm gonna stick to like my grade or something like that. I don't know why. Like, I don't know who made that decision for me. Like I could have been like a different level right now or something. I don't know.
You mean you
But
could you could have graduated earlier?
like 1 year could have been a big difference like in my life, right? Like I could have been a fucking millionaire by now or something. Like 1 year, like
One
kind of like,
year.
I don't know,
You
man.
could have burnt
So
out and fallen
last
off too.
last year we weren't talking about COVID stuff. Like 1 year could change everything. So
This is true. Where
um,
were you a year ago?
a year ago I got engaged in New Orleans. Yes, yes.
Wow.
We got engaged. Me and my fiance got engaged in New Orleans, and New Orleans has great food. So that's a lot of story about that too.
Yeah,
Yeah, New Orleans had great food, and New Orleans was actually like a place where we talked about going to for like a long time. You should try like seafood and fried chicken, like Southern food, and drinking. I guess what else do you
yeah,
do
yeah,
in New
yeah. They
Orleans?
don't have any open container laws. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
living in New Orleans is different than visiting New Orleans in that sense.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's like a social discrepancy, like when it comes to that kind of situation, and that also speaks into the type of food that people eat too.
Yeah, that's true. And
Learning about like health and wealth, and how much you pay for certain Popeyes meal compared to like a sit down meal like in New Orleans. You know what I'm saying? So,
that's true. Yeah, because I mean,
yeah.
I grew up around New Orleans. I grew up in Mississippi, and so there's a
Oh
lot of
shit.
visits and stuff. Yeah, yeah. But like, I feel like the culture in New Orleans, like in terms of like the industriousness and whatever you have in New York, in New Orleans, it's a lot more
Right.
relaxed.
Yeah.
People are partying, people are eating good food, people take their time with meals. There's like a whatever. Yeah, there's all the racism, but like there's like a
The racism
charm.
is like side note, like asterisk. Good food, but we got
There,
racism.
it is definitely there.
Yeah,
Don't get it twisted.
yeah. Mason's Dixie line, right?
Way below it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, see, funny thing about that too, like even I grew up in the Philippines, like learning about Filipino culture, Filipino history. I sort of forgot everything, man. Like
yeah,
I got into U.S. history. Like I actually really love history, so I don't know, for some reason, like all this like knowledge of like Philippine history, I kind of just like wiped out in my head. I don't know if that's like,
whitewashed.
yo, that
Yeah.
ass. Like,
No, no, for real.
seriously.
But no, but for real though, like, okay, so yes, you got into a bunch of US history. I'm sure you're probably
Yeah,
a very
yeah.
studious kid, right? That interested you.
Bill of
How
Rights, man. Genius.
how late on in life though did you think back and like, yo, the way I was presented all of this knowledge, this US history or whatever, it's framed in such a way that it kind of like washes out other things
Yeah,
that I knew, right? So it's like,
yeah.
did you ever have that switch, and when did you have that switch?
I mean, I was a kid, so I just took it in. Like,
Yeah,
you're like a sponge. You take in all this stuff, and you never kind of had time to analyze it and come up with some sort of perspective, right? But like whitewashing, like taking out all the
you
nutrients
don't
and like
even know about.
the minerals of like the stories. Yeah, it's one sided, and it just, I don't know. It never hit me like until like later on in life, and until you start, I think, commingling and like meeting people with different cultures and
So
kind of
how late on
force
in life?
yourself into it.
Can you put an age on it, or
Maybe high
maybe?
school. Maybe high school. So like, yeah, high school. Like I grew up, in Queens. Like I said, diverse population. Like in a proximity of like 2 blocks, I have like Spanish neighbors and
That's
like
right.
Bangladesh neighbors and like Nepalese neighbors and mostly Filipinos too. Like in Woodside, but severe cultural differences. Like if you lived elsewhere in like Jersey or like Mississippi.
Yeah.
You know
No,
what I'm
Queens is
saying?
the
So
actual melting pot.
yeah, yeah. But I think when you're forced, not forced, but when you're able to find yourself in this environment, either you become you're part of an environment, like you're part of that new community, that new diverse culture, or you shun yourself away from it and be like, yo, I'm gonna stick to my own people and just like do what I know.
So we talked on a previous episode, we kind of touched on this issue of like biculturalism. So like, coming from the Philippines, growing up Filipino, even in America, in your household, right?
Yeah,
And that culture being very strong. But then also, going to school, having American friends and everything in that culture. So growing up with those two cultures, did they really ever clash? Were you hiding one from the other? Would you try to boast about one to the other or put down one to the other? You know what I mean? I mean, I'm saying this from experience with like Indian culture. I
yeah,
always try to hedge the two against
yeah.
each other, and I never really understood why.
I think I got a very general understanding of it too, like specifically when it comes to language, right?
Hmm.
So, um, we were forced in the Philippines, like as part like forced. Like I keep saying forced. Maybe that's like a whitewashing term that's just like stuck in your head, right? Forced.
Right.
But we we were given the opportunity to learn English growing up in the Philippines. But we were expected to speak English like fully, like throughout all our curriculum
Right.
in the Philippines, and I was able to communicate like as if I was born here. Like once I got off in the plane, I still had the accent though. Like I kind of had to hide that a little bit, and I don't know how I just magically like lost it. I could bring it out like every now and then, like
It came out with
um,
anger.
just for like heat check. Like
Yeah.
I gotta put out the accent. But no, not when I'm angry.
Okay.
I think an example for like, let's say like my mom, right? Like when she would get mad at me, she would talk to me more in English. Like it hurts more a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, it's not nice. like you know.
So your mom wouldn't talk to you though in English regularly, right? And you speak back in English though?
So it's weird. We sort of started to talk in English a lot more,
Okay.
like growing up here, and I can't pinpoint exactly like the time frame, but we definitely transitioned from speaking full blown Tagalog into just like English now. Like even on the phone, even on the text now, like every now and then, like we'll have a conversation in full Tagalog. But I don't know if you have this like if you know this expression like nosebleed. Like if
Oh,
you speak to you know this expression. All right, so I think my lady kind of taught me this expression because like if you're in the Philippines and you do know English in the Philippines, but if somebody's speaking to you like very like English proper, like super succinct with like your movements and just like it's just hitting like the English words, like the Filipinos just get nosebleed because like they can't like follow you right away. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're getting punched in the face like with all these like words that you're trying to translate in your head. So you get this nosebleed because you're just not like, oh, I don't get what you're saying. So for me, it's a reverse one where I'm trying to speak Tagalog, my natural language, and then I end up kind of having like that buffer period where I'm like translating my words into Tagalog and English, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna stick to English because I can't even talk to you anymore. I can't like get the translation right.
that may be an effect of, so that's a cool thing to think about. I mean, not a cool thing to think about, but I think about that with the like Hindi, with my language. I
Yeah,
grew up with that. My parents, they speak that to me. I speak English back to them. But I feel like I've been doing that so long now that I don't really feel comfortable speaking Hindi, and my accent is probably real bad. And like even if we go to India, I'll just speak English
right,
to people because I know they know English, and that's like in my wheelhouse.
right,
I'm better at English
yeah,
than you are at English because you grew up in India, and so I'm just
right,
you. And so it's like that kind of thing. do you think that comes from do you think that comes from like not wanting to show a vulnerability? Because I know it's not an issue of not wanting to learn. Because you're a very curious person. You're a chef. You do R&D for dishes. I mean, you're very imaginative and you have a willingness to learn. So, but that kind of thing specifically, right? Do you think that comes from a hiding of a vulnerability? Because I think that's what it is for me.
Mm, yeah, I think at some point it came, you know, like let's say like your younger friends were kind of like making fun of you because you speak a little bit differently, or
Hmm.
like I remember I had to memorize my phone number and my address, even though like my school was probably like 5 blocks away. Like I would still get driven right to school because like I don't know, like New York like that. New York is
Right.
dangerous, right? Even in Queens, whatever. But I had to remember certain things in English like perfectly in that kind of order. Even though I knew English, I just had to my number, my house, this is where I live. Like I have to say that. I'm just like, why do I feel like a robot right now? Like why do I have to say it in a certain way? I think maybe it's an expression that you have to be assimilating in a certain way for people to communicate with you or see you in a certain light, which is
Yeah.
kind of fucked up when you think about it. Even like
Yeah.
when you're younger, like you like have to adhere to that.
When I think about that, I think about the extension of that, which is like, why are we kind of programmed to where if we see somebody like a doctor or a scientist, somebody very well established, and they have an accent that's not an American accent and they're speaking English, if it's not an American accent or a British accent, do we subconsciously lower them down a level, or
Maybe.
question,
Yeah.
maybe scrutinize the authenticity or the authority with which
Yeah.
they speak, as opposed to extending the benefit of the doubt to someone who has an English accent or a British accent. And I wonder about that
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, I could theorize about it, but yeah, I know it's true. You
Yeah.
know, um,
I took a speech course. I remember in community college, and we were talking about like origins of like languages and just like certain sounds kind of like emit a certain, I guess, feeling. So maybe accents are thought about it in that way, and subconsciously people just sound a little bit more authoritative or you know,
yeah,
more
maybe
commanding in language.
is it an issue of palatability or is it an issue of packaging, right? So is the American accent more
Yeah.
palatable to us, which is why we extend the benefit of the doubt? Like I could literally say everything I say. If I say it with an Indian accent and it's not about math or science, people will be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking
Yo, what's the YouTube channel of Khan Academy? That
Yo,
dude.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I bet people watch that. It's like, oh, I expected this guy to have. I don't actually.
Oh
I've never
yeah,
watched any of it, and I assume he has an American accent because he's
this
like a
guy
guy
knows what he's
that's
talking about.
yeah.
Wait, he has an American accent?
I don't
Damn.
know. Actually, I've never seen it, but I'm assuming he does.
I'm probably not gonna listen to that dude if he has an American accent. He has to have like a genuine Indian accent
Oh no, I thought he
so
was
I
like.
could take
I thought he
notes.
was like an Indian dude that grew up here. Like me. Oh,
Oh,
see,
see,
I think we're doing this bias thing that we're talking about.
even now, like we don't even know. We haven't even seen the video,
No,
but the association of math and brown skinned dude that's talking about math,
yo, that'd be
he
funny if
has
it
to
was on
be,
some
you
like
know.
if it was on some like reverse appropriation shit, and some white guy made all the courses, and he's like, I need a brown face to really sell this math stuff, to really sell the legitimacy of this math. Why don't we do a computer
And
course?
you know what's weird? And you know what's weird? For you to think about that, that means somebody already thought about it. So I mean, dude, look at the Simpsons, man. Look at the whole Hank Azaria thing. You
Yo,
think you think Hank Azaria is gonna be on a spotlight for just Apu? Like,
Oh
no,
man,
he can
yo,
kind of mold himself into like different stuff, but
but that dude, that
he
comedian
gets
came out.
flagged for Apu. You know?
Right, but that so the comedian did that documentary like 4 or 5
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago,
I saw that. Yeah.
and he got so much white lash about it. It's like, well, Homer's a dumb character, so they show Apu well, so he's upset. It's like, but you don't understand that this is a white guy doing an Indian voice that was created by a different white guy mocking Indian people.
Right.
But that's what that is. Which actually, so now maybe a good point to get into this segment that we do on this show called
Tokenized or fetishized.
And so in this segment, maybe if you have like a personal anecdote, maybe from you're a kid, any memory you have that happened to maybe you or to maybe someone you know, where they're in a situation and maybe they didn't recognize it immediately, but later on you're like, yo, I was really tokenized in that, or I was really fetishized for my culture or whatever. I was tokenized for my face or fetishized for my face. But so if you have an example in your personal history,
Yeah.
also if you can elaborate what may be the differences between the two as you see it,
Yeah.
tokenism or
So
fascism.
I definitely was trying to like contemplate on that question for a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't have anything specific to be honest, because
Yeah.
maybe I was just a little bit I didn't have that much hindsight on it back in the day. Because I mean, like I mentioned, like I was in high school. I hung out with like different kinds of like folks, like different kinds of like people, different cultures. I didn't hang out with like the same sort of like uh I didn't hang out with like much Filipinos
Yeah.
in high school. So I don't think I was ever, I guess, victimized or tokenized or fetishized in a certain way. I mean, not even in the industry itself too,
Really?
Like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just never like gave a shit about it enough,
Yeah.
or I never let it create drama or some sort of like just like a bad thing around me. I feel like
Yeah.
there's more to like to like the workload and like more of like the personal stuff and just the tokenized and fetishized thing. But maybe something else will come up like in the later time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think a big thing is that like with first generation or immigrant generation, I mean, I don't know, the definition of first generation is loose. Either it's like you immigrated here and you grew up here, or that you were born
right,
here and grew up here, but it's really the first generation that in this country of your family. So like I think with a lot of us like first generation and stuff, we call these things microaggressions, where it's like, oh, you must. So it's like, tell me more about Filipino food. Tell me that this is like, oh, I'm just satisfying your curiosity or whatever. But we call them microaggressions. I feel because we have to be conditioned to overlook them, not challenge them, because they're more trouble than they're worth, right? You make the aggressor more like defensive. And it's just like, I don't want to do that. I need to navigate. I need to move. I'm trying to build Francis. I'm trying to,
right.
so like, do you feel like there's probably, so I'm assuming there's probably like a lot of moments like that.
So
Just like,
maybe like my examples, like I would say something like somebody would misspell Filipino, or just assume that certain things reflect within Filipino culture is the same as like Thai culture,
okay.
because we kind of have like this similar look for some reason. I mean, I get confused too. Like sometimes like they're just like, wait, are you Thai or are you Filipino? Especially like now with the masks on, like the masks on like this, like are you Thai? Like at the bank, I think it was yesterday. It was in Woodside. Kind of like an eclectic mix of Thai restaurants out there too. So I wanted to get cash, and the lady at the counter definitely thinks she was Thai because like she had the Thai accent. And I was like, oh, I'm going to this Thai restaurant later. Oh, she's like, oh, where you going? Whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm going to this one right here, but I need to get cash because they only do cash. And then she's like, wait, are you Thai or are you Filipino? I'm like, can you guess?
Can you
I can't really tell. I'm like, well, we got to take off our mask now, whatever. But maybe like little minor shit like that, like a microaggression that you
where are
would
you
have to
really
kind
from?
of.
But where are you really from?
Where am I really from now?
Yeah, like that
I'm
kind of
from
thing.
I'm from over here, from
No,
Queens.
but where you really like?
Yeah, like what language do you really speak? But yeah,
Worst.
like I think little things like that, like you have to just like correct them, in a certain way. Like people would spell Filipino with like PH.
Yeah.
It's like that dog. It's Filipino with an F. But then you wouldn't know it because like the Philippines is spelled with PH. Like, or somebody would be like, all right, well, you know what I mean. Like, I'm spelling it. But I think that really does irk me a little bit. It's kind of like bringing up some stuff now.
I don't even know. Like, I don't even know that would be an aggression. So I'm learning now.
I don't know
So,
why. I really don't know why. Because like maybe it's like a Catholic thing in me where like I have to capitalize the F and make sure like it's a proper noun, make sure it's spelled correctly because like
no, I
I'm a
mean
nerd.
things
So,
should
like,
be correct, man. Like things. I mean things
Yeah.
should be right. Language is precision.
Yeah. Right. And it's what it's an identifier, right? Like
Mhm.
language is like an identifier of sometimes intelligence. Like people look down on certain, like we were talking about, like authority earlier. Like people just look down on certain mannerisms and like how you communicate. So uh,
Right. Like
there's a lot to be said for sure about the microaggressions, like with that.
yeah, like some of the okay. So like going back to food, right? So some of these some of these dudes in like different countries, Philippines, India, whatever, that are cooking on the roadside, that have been doing it for like generations, things like that, and they're like super fast and precise with everything.
Yeah.
Like I'm just inferring because I don't know this world, but I'm assuming that those guys could be right next to the best chefs in the world, with how they do their thing because they're just so zoned in, but maybe they can't communicate as well. Maybe they can't brand themselves as well.
Right.
Right. So it's like we're gonna look down on that. And I know I don't know if we touched on this conversation, but the whole thought of, there being street food, peasant food versus really high-end food. And like I know that sometimes when I talk to like Chef Harold, he'll break down the costs of all the food, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this was mad cheap, but I upsell it because the
Right.
presentation and like the history of it or
Yeah.
whatever.
You got a white tablecloth now that you gotta make it all fancy.
Right. So I feel like now, let me know if this is a stretch. I feel like, we come here and I don't want to say like white people or whatever, but like, maybe it's American consumerism and our capital culture or whatever that promotes this thing where it's like, yeah, let's white tablecloth these different cultures, but let's go in and be the expert at it because I need to be the one that curates this culture that's not my own because you know what? I'm so interested in it. I need to be the one that brings Japanese culture to the world because I read manga when I was a kid and I watched all the animes and I learned Japanese. So I need to be the best, which actually brings us to our segment called
Appropriation or appreciation.
And in this segment,
Great segue.
in this segment,
You like manifested destiny like into that fucking segue right there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But okay, in this segment called appropriation or appreciation, it's a new thing we're trying. We kind of touched on this before, right? There's previously in the food world, we had these older men, right, that go and explore other cultures, really through like maybe they fetishize them or whatever, but it's like an intense desire, maybe not necessarily to maliciously be the expert in the thing, but they're just like, I have to be the authority in this, right? So they take these different flavor profiles or whatever and maybe play with them, introduce them here, but they create a monopoly on how those flavor profiles are perceived, right? So it kind of extricates the ethnic authenticity of what they are, whereas this is packaged as like, oh, here's a taste of India, here's a taste of.
Right.
So I like, okay, getting into flavor profiles, right? Can you, well, first of all, can you tell us what flavor profiles are, as you understand from your professional expert?
Simple flavor profile.
Right. How would you
Let's
define?
say like you're just at some. I do this exercise like quite often, right? So like I go to a supermarket, go to like these ethnic aisles, right? Like ethnic aisles and like the rice and beans aisles or whatever. Like all these like different shelves like with like different products. Perfect segue later to like the food service part, but um the flavor profiles that you kind of bound yourself like into these like aisles, they kind of like limit you into a certain way. But if you look at it in a different way, you're learning more about like different things, and you're learning more reflectively on like what this relates like to your flavor profile. So like, let's say I go to like a Polish aisle, and they have like some ham kind of situation. I can't even read it, but there's like a ham
Right.
thing over
The
there.
green points.
You,
Is like,
yeah,
oh, that's
you
right.
look
You
at the
used to.
ingredients. Yeah, right. Yeah, you look at the ingredients. It's like, all right, there's like ham stuff in there. So, all right, this must be ham. I go into my culture. Oh, we have like this similar product. Maybe I can kind of utilize that to kind of bring that same sort of flavor profile, same sort of like, I think, cultural identity, like in what you're trying to do with the flavor profile. But yeah, I think flavor profile just depends on, I think, one, what you're trying to bring, what you know now in terms of like, modern taste or modern flavors into flavors that are reminiscent of what you had before, or flavors that you want to create because you've learned as a chef, like you're a different person now and you want to share something completely different, or
Yeah.
that your curiosity just like knows no bounds now. So like you're trying different flavors. And I think the last time we were talking about this was I was talking about Renee Redzepi.
Yeah, I think so.
Last name.
I didn't
So
do the
like
research on it. Can you explain?
this dude goes to like, well, everybody knows him as like the best chef in the world, like in Copenhagen, right? Promoting, you know, um, what do you call that? Hyper localizing like ingredients like into your own surroundings.
Okay.
But then this dude goes to fucking in the middle of Mexico, does the same thing, gets like Mexican ingredients, like does Mexican cooking techniques, essentially making Mexican food,
Right.
charging 800 a pop for a dinner. And is there like a bonus for like the Mexican culture? Where's the benefit go to? Is it more on like his profile? Like, oh, damn, Noma's out in Mexico right now. You got to get in
Bonus.
on that.
I mean, the bonus is he gets to open a bunch of new restaurants and then
Right,
hire dishwashers that are
right,
Mexican and cooks that are Mexican that make all the
right.
food. So is that the
Is that enough?
no?
Is that enough to quantify like the appropriation? Is that enough to make sense of? All right, yeah, you could take over for like a few months and then take all our culture, bring that same flavor back into Copenhagen or Tokyo
Right.
or Australia, like wherever you want to go.
Maybe platform some of those like grandmothers that have been doing the cooking of this original
Yeah.
food
But
for
I to their to be fair though, I think they did sort of put the Mexican grandmothers, like let's say, like, they were actually like having people learn the old way to like
yeah.
make masa. So that's sort of like a good way to appropriate and like appreciate
Right.
culture.
Yeah, so
Right.
there is that line,
Yeah. Right.
right? So I guess
Clearly there's a line
right,
that defines like
and
either
so
or.
like how do you figure out how to navigate that line? So like with this guy, right, going to Mexico, doing those learning those old techniques, but just to do the pop-up whatever and charge a lot of money and come back, um, right, not necessarily doing anything for the culture. Um, but the appreciation factor comes in with the maybe not just the learning the old techniques, but teaching the old techniques or making people aware of that kind of thing. So it's like if that can outweigh the other thing, the material benefit you get from it, so that it shows that like maybe your intentions with doing it were maybe a little bit altruistic, but not
Yeah.
so malicious. But I mean, the guy I had in mind, and we might have touched on this, and there was like a whole Netflix thing. But like the top, this was kind of weird to me. Like the top ramen guy in Japan, and I don't know if he's the top guy, but that's how it's packaged to me. The
Yeah.
top ramen guy is this white dude from Long Island,
Yeah. Right.
and so like
New York tough. New York tough.
New York tough. Yeah, you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But I guess he just didn't make it in New York, so he made it in Japan to make it in New York.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I can't say that. I shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but so our producer Fonny did a little research on him, and he like so here's a little blurb I've got. Ivan, a white Jewish guy from Long Island who studies Japanese in college, moves to Japan after school. He falls in love with the culture and the food, specifically ramen, after trying it with a friend. After years pass and he's tried other jobs, has kids, loses a wife, and remarries, he revisits Japan and takes on a project of opening the best ramen shop in Japan. He starts small and masters the main ramen bowl, and then opens another ramen shop in NYC. So the idea of being like, okay, I can just go into this country and then I can be the best at this thing that they have all this, you know, cultural gravitas around, and then open my shop back in New York, which is where I make all the money and get the world uh, credibility, you know. So the idea of doing that and the idea of being like, I need to open the best shop. Do you think that the effect of it has an underlying maliciousness, but the intention of it, is there an underlying maliciousness? You see what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
where
Yeah.
it's like, you know, I'm just
For
gonna
sure.
take the culture for me because I love that I'm a consumer of this culture and I want to consume so much more that you know what? I want to be a producer in this culture, not necessarily caring about the other people in the culture,
Right.
but
But see, Ivan Orkin,
right.
he did the hard work too.
Okay.
You know, he he lived in the environment. He learned the language.
Yeah.
He fell in love with a woman in Japan. He studied ramen making. He studied flavor profiles. He did his homework.
So he did his homework.
Clearly, he still loves it. You know, he's made the travel back home, back to New York to open up a shop. I think a certain story requires a little bit of romancing to be able to credit it as appreciation.
Okay.
So without all this sort of hard work background, I mean, guy, it was like a Netflix special too, right? So
Yeah.
like,
No,
of course, you're gonna feel like, oh God, this guy is just like deserving of all. But he did his thing. He did the hard work. He created his own flavor profile, which is unique in Japan. You know, you go to Japan, certain regions, certain places only have that certain flavor profile because people know what they like. And with a culture like Japan, it's very hard to change like little things in the culture because it's what's been done and what's been known for a long time.
right.
So maybe the idea that this non-Japanese person is creating something in the very likeness of Japanese flavor profile, but he's putting his soul into it. Like he's putting like chicken smoke in the ramen, which is traditionally a different flavor profile than the pork flavor. Like it's chicken fat. You know, he's bringing a little bit of New York to Japan, essentially, right? And his culture too. Chicken smokes, like in the Jewish culture, like they use that like to make I think matzo ball soup or something like that. But yeah, he married into a new type of cuisine, which he claims his own with his knowledge, but the stuff that he loved in that culture. I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong from what he did, but maybe it's because the romanticized kind of story of it.
Right.
Because what if some other guy did that, like some unknown, like Joe Schmo did that in Japan? I'm sure he wasn't the first one. I'm sure somebody else kind of tried. Maybe what if it was some black dude, right, from Minnesota,
right.
like the prince
Prince.
of ramen. He goes to like Tokyo, like opens up his ramen shop or whatever. Maybe it's not gonna be received the same way. Maybe that's something that we could kind of that we can kind of look into.
True. Maybe. And like, yeah, no, I'm also prompting a discussion here. I'm not saying this is my, this is how I feel about Ivan specifically, but this trend, right, of appropriating versus appreciating. So like, maybe that's the line, right? Appreciating something is like learning the history and infusing your own. Appropriating is taking something as is, whatever, and making it your own. As opposed to infusing your own. Is that, you think that could be fair to?
I mean, that's certainly fair. I wanted to reference something. I think we talked about this like when we first met with like Jean Georges. So like Jean Georges in the '90s, cooking traditional like French style.
Yeah.
Like I think he traveled to Thailand or like Vietnam, somewhere in the southeast also, and brought back all these like techniques and like all these ideas, and then puts it all in the menu, like little bits of like miso on like his black cod, and like that became his signature thing or whatever.
And it was.
I hope it's Jean Georges. I hope I'm not like mixing up like another white dude. But see, it probably was a white dude.
They do it to you.
Whatever, man. I'm not even like a 3-star Michelin chef. Like I'm not even in that world. I could care less. Yeah. But it happened with Wolfgang Puck too. Like he's doing like Asian food like in the '90s.
Yeah, I remember the. Yo, that's so weird.
See, why are you getting mad?
No, it's just like why did that hit me when I was a kid?
He's been making his money since the '90s, but people weren't really like questioning it because
this Wolfgang Puck Asian sauce. Wolfgang Puck isn't an Asian name.
He's not even cooking Asian. He doesn't speak the language. I'm sure he doesn't speak the language. He could barely speak English.
I don't believe it.
So
yeah, if he could speak English, he'd know that his name is too strange.
Yeah, but it's literally like, yeah, he took some of the flavor profiles that that he kind of liked, infused it in his own, hence the idea of like fusion cuisine,
right?
Like putting random ingredients into something to kind of mimic what I once experienced, like in one trip.
How do you feel about fusion type or that genre of food and stuff? Fusion, because it's like, is this appreciative of the cultures that it fuses, or is this exploitative?
Yeah, in a light-hearted sense, in a way, if you fuse like Taco Bell and Pizza Hut, people wouldn't be too mad about it, right?
No.
It's just like two dumb American concepts. It's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I want a stuffed crust with my chalupa. Good, great, one-stop shop.
Right.
But yeah, if you go to like a Thai restaurant or like a sushi place, like all in one, you're like, oh, this isn't authentic sushi, or this isn't like good
Right? You think
Thai
less of.
food. Right? Yeah. I don't know. Like maybe it's the understanding of value, right? Like, do we just consider Japanese food and to be like this upper echelon kind of cuisine that you have to like have like the best Japanese food, and then the middle ground is like Thai food, which is like everybody knows what Thai food is. So we need to capitalize on both because like we got to please like all these consumers.
It's true. So you think there a hierarchy, perhaps, in how we perceive different. I don't want to say ethnic food, but like food
Yo, yeah,
that's
dude, the ethnic food. I don't even know what ethnic food is, man.
right. Like
That like I know my food is ethnic
what's
food,
American?
but I know my food is ethnic food to like some Chad, like
Right.
out in like Alberta, Canada, whatever.
I mean,
But
your food's ethnic food to me.
then it's my food, man. I don't know. Like I never. I don't. I honestly don't know what that word means. Like ethnic food. Like who is it a foreigner
Like
to? Like you know.
that word depends on having an absence, right? So it's like, oh, that is in direct opposition to what we have as normal. So it's like a way for me to codify what is abnormal. And so I'll just code it as ethnic, which even
So
fucking said it. And
yeah,
I'm just like,
yeah,
yo,
right. Like oh, caught yourself, man.
yo, street food, ethnic food.
Look at your brown watch. Like it's check that skin real quick. But segue real quick into like my segue real quick into like my own
Right.
job.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah,
So sorry.
we
So
yeah.
you grew okay, so coming up in Queens, right? High school, after high school, you did you go to culinary school or anything? How did you start the
The original plan was for me to head out to California actually.
okay?
So I lived in Reno, Nevada for like 2 years, like after high school. I figured that way I would kind of get into San Francisco, kind of work my way into like the restaurants out there. But I don't know, man. Just like New York, just like had a calling. Like I had to go back at some point. So came back 2 years later. Um,
Okay.
I started kind of building my resume so I could get ready for culinary school because I know that if I go into uh, CIA, like where I graduated, if I go to CIA without all these like college credits, I would have to like take all these um, college kind of credits along with like my culinary classes, and I didn't want to do that because I was thinking about the money. Like the money was expensive, like for to pay for all these classes.
Yeah.
So I went to a community college, kind of got my college credits going, build up my resume, and then actually college is where I started kind of questioning the identity as far as like culture. Um, finding like the line between me being an immigrant as a Filipino and as a Filipino American, like growing up here. So I think college is like actually where it became like a prominent kind of issue.
And so then you how long did it take from after culinary school to get like a job at a is like a start training Michelin wise or like at a super fancy restaurant or
Yeah,
did you do it with something else?
yeah. So part of our program in culinary school is you take an internship or an externship in the middle of it. So like at the end of your first year, you have to select a site where you work as an intern for like I think 4 months. It's like a bunch of hours, like 4 months, and then kind of get your experience that way. And it's up to you to kind of make it happen. It's either going to be approved by the school, like through like the list of like the people that they know, or if you specifically want to work at a place like in a country club somewhere for some reason, you have to do the paperwork and just kind of make it happen. Do your research and have them fill out like the official stuff, whatever. But I mean, I I was supposed to actually do my internship in Chicago, but I stayed in New York too. Like just, just didn't want to leave yet. I guess
I mean, it's not like New York's a small place, or I mean, geographically maybe, but
it's
you
so
know,
small, but it's just like the energy here is like, a little bit different. So like I stayed within the city to do my externship, and I think I mentioned it to you before. I did my internship at North End Grill with Chef Cardo's. Rest in peace,
recipe.
Chef Cardo's.
Yeah,
But yeah, I definitely
damn.
wanted to get into that New York kind of restaurant at during culinary school here.
So after that internship, where did you go?
After internship, you kind of finish up the curriculum at school. I was undecided on where to land like a job, right?
Okay.
What I did was probably like the most excruciating kind of process of like job hunting. I literally trailed at like 40 different restaurants in a span of like maybe 40 or like 50 days. So like 40 different restaurants. I'm talking about like all in New York, like shitty bar restaurants, a restaurant out in Bushwick at some point. I forgot why, and I forgot where. Like all over. Like I took a trail like a stage at a place in the Bronx. I don't even know where, but like I wanted to make sure that I landed at a good place after culinary school, and it didn't matter to me if it was going to be at a Michelin star or like a family style restaurant or you know some pasta making place. So like I trailed at a pasta company as well.
What
Um,
do you mean? What do you mean by trail?
so trailing is essentially just you know trying out like shadowing somebody for a day at a restaurant, and back then they didn't really like pay you for your trail. You kind of just like sit there.
You probably don't know, but do they?
Yeah. I think they have to do now actually.
Oh,
Like you have to like pay the trail, but that was like another thing. I just wanted to experience like different outlets of like the restaurants, not just like the Michelin stars. Like you could read up on that shit. You could watch that on Netflix. Like oh like you gotta cut things in a certain way and like just do this for like 8 months or whatever. Like pick parsley for 8 months, but you're not really gonna learn anything. And I think I knew enough about myself that what I wanted is not just the experience, but I wanted to get along with the culture that I'm going to be working with. So like a family oriented and a
wow.
leadership kind of situation where I could learn, I could grow as a professional. And yeah, I think in hindsight, it was good that I went into the industry a little bit later. Like a little bit later, I mean, I was like 24 after culinary school.
Okay.
So I had that sort of experience where like nothing's, not everything's like bright eyed. Like oh, I want to go to John Short because I heard he had like this amazing Asian dish that he had, when he came from like China or
You've got more of your
or
own mind, and you
yeah,
can
yeah. And
see.
and I think that's sort of like how I molded myself like different in the industry. Like I'm a big LeBron James fan.
Hmm.
He always advocates for being more than an athlete. I think I'm more than a cook. I'm more than just just a person like knowing how to like
Yeah.
cook food or whatever. Like I need to be able to understand food. I need to be able to communicate with food, share food, and you know create food, create fun food, create experiences with food. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
what
that's
I
kind of
yeah.
like so I'm looking at our research, five flavors in flavor profiles, five flavors work together to create balance, harmony in a dish: salty, sour, sweet, bitter, and umami. And so those five flavors, whatever, building blocks, right? So I guess whatever the balance you achieve between those five is your personal narrative. right? So it's like this is what I'm trying to show, whether I'm infusing
Right.
something with different culture. Like these are the building blocks, right? Different ingredients achieve these different things, and it's all about you practicing and playing, and that's essentially your narrative is how you balance these. So it's like, where's the line though between being a chef that promotes a culture, right? Like this is how these things are done. This is how this food is made. Going back to the roots, 400 years ago, this was done this way, right?
Yeah.
Promoting culture versus being the guys like, I'm gonna throw this thing from this in here and this thing in here from here, right? And this is the Francis uh, flavor profile, right? So
Right.
like that line of where people look at you as like, okay, this guy's the authority on Filipino food, or versus this guy is this guy is the dude with this wacky, unique thing that maybe, so it's like, at one point, do you make a decision as a chef and to go to either of those realms? Like keep it to where, I'm just going to honor how all these,
Right.
I'm an originalist
Right.
versus
So
experimenter.
it's crazy. So even if you choose path A from path B, you're still wrong. Somebody, because somebody's always gonna say that. Oh, I think this one would have been a better choice because this and that, whatever. And like, what do you do? The point is, like, you shouldn't give a shit. Like, you shouldn't care. Like, it's all about like knowing your value. So I'm sure, like, you research this, like, with my project. I call it bad for business pop up. I didn't want to do just like straight up Filipino
Right.
food pop up, some sort of like Filipino flag name or whatever, right? So, and I think it's because I know my identity. Like it's more than just like one sort of like way for me to look at it. But I named it Bad for Business Pop Up because again, path A to path B, you're not gonna satisfy anybody, or you're not gonna satisfy everybody. You might as well satisfy yourself. You know, in one way, path A, somebody looks at you like, oh wow, this guy's like really knowing what he's doing. Like, it's like authentic, original, or super creative, super new. Path B is like, well, I've had better. I've had this, and it's not really like I went to Japan. That's a lot better because he's in New York and it's better in Japan, whatever. It doesn't make sense. Like you can't satisfy everybody. Like you're still trying to make your money somehow, right?
Yeah.
And like you're bad for business for somebody in some capacity, so you might as well kind of do it on your own.
And own it.
Yeah, man, do
Bad
it up.
business pop-up. So
Yeah.
okay, I just want to quickly, your company, Bad for Business Pop-ups, obviously pop-ups. Now that is a decision you made from. What was your last job before the business?
So I've
Before
been
the
doing the yeah.
entrepreneur?
I've been. I think I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit, but I think it was 2016 where I was sort of like leaving this fine dining kind of restaurant, and I wanted to go back to school and finish up like my bachelor's in hospitality management that I'm kind of still working on. Like goddamn, like this for so long, but I've done it as like a side project because
Mm.
I kind of wanted to put my footing in like in different things. So I was private chefing for a little bit after, um, and then the company kind of closed down because like they didn't get money to kind of go expand the company or whatever. And then I worked as like in Greenpoint Fish and Lobster um, for a little bit, and then during all that time, like I was kind of conceptualizing like what I want to do for these pop ups because you know when you sort of like having a job, right? Like you're cooking as a profession, and you don't have like a total control in what you're doing. you're you just have a job. It's not a career. It's not like a fulfilling kind of career where like your creative um passions are not really like into play. Like you're making somebody else's food, you're making somebody else's money. Like you're really just like
You're chopping
working.
onions 10 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, you're just not doing anything for yourself. So I wanted to be creative, and I wanted to do this as like part of like my creative outlet. Like I can't write. Well, actually, I could write, but I can't draw, and like I can't like do anything artistic. So this kind of a creative outlet is like my
Right.
art.
But the art,
Essentially.
the art is in
Right.
the work, right? You're
But the
all
art doesn't pay the bills. The art doesn't pay the bills.
you don't have to tell me.
Unfortunately,
You don't have to tell me.
unfortunately.
I am a
So
photographer.
so after hey man, your shots are beautiful. You making me look good.
Cause you do look good, dog, and
Um,
you made me
yeah,
eat
yeah,
well.
yeah. The idea, like, yeah, art doesn't really pay the bills. It's like now you have to come up with a way to just have a paycheck. But
Yeah.
that's when I got into food service. I work in I
So
work
you
in a
were
food
a
service now.
you
Yeah.
were a is this you're a brand ambassador for this global, we can't say it, but a global food service company. And then we were kind of
Yes.
alluding to it with the
Right. Right.
ethnic aisle thing.
Right.
This is
Right.
where you would find those products. Um,
Right.
so being a brand ambassador with this global company, which is not an American company. So your work you do in
Yeah.
America, in New York, and I'm sure also around the country, chefing, you do that, and so you have to navigate this corporate culture, and I'm sure you
Right.
have a lot of corporate events. But then you've got this other culture that is it's a more conservative, um,
Right.
foreign to American culture, but it's not foreign.
Right.
Nothing's really
Yeah.
foreign. So picking between the two, do you have to code switch kind of in like these corporate environments, or do you just like
Yeah.
they're one Francis, that
Right.
I deal with all business people this way?
Right. You definitely have to be like that's where the professionalism kind of comes into play, right? Like you have to
Right.
be cognizant about how you speak and how you communicate because you're talking to like a whole different audience now. But the underlying things that I found like during the corporate stuff is like the ethnic thing that we mentioned. So like one of my jobs is to kind of figure out flavor profiles from like different restaurants and all that stuff and classification of such restaurants are like American versus like ethnic, which is like again ridiculous. Is like isn't American culture nowadays usually like a mix of like different things?
Mhm.
So even with like a long-standing big name company, there's still that sort of innate understanding that there's a there's a category one versus like a category like two or something. Like category one is always going to be like the standard white palate American. I don't know. It's just weird. I'm like, why do we operate in this way? Even in the corporate world.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the corporate world, the decisions are driven by metrics, and then the metrics come from, I guess, the way people operate. So I don't know if it's like a chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say something earlier about the Mexico Copenhagen Enoma thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in a way that Rene Redzepi was able to take that culture, appreciate it in a way. He's also published books about these certain techniques. So now it's like a written work that could be researched and studied and passed down. So I look at it in a way was I look at it in this way where what about those people who did not have that pathway of publishing or R&Ding and having the spotlight on them? They wouldn't have that opportunity to kind of expose themselves or put their voices out there. And I think that's like where you can kind of say that that's like appropriation
Right.
because yeah, somebody was I'm sure somebody 100 years ago was exploring out in in Copenhagen, like doing the same exact thing, but nobody was recording it. Nobody was like,
So I think it's
there's no photographer. There's no photographer to kind of like highlight all these stuff and just like help this kind of thing happen. But I don't know.
I think it's
Is it unfair
perhaps
though? Look, is it a technology kind of thing, like limiting what we're capable
I mean
of, like the production?
platform,
Yeah.
technology, privilege, benefit of the doubt, how you're
Right.
viewed, your
Right.
confidence, but like I think it's an
Right.
issue of a curator trying to be a creator. Like, yeah, no, obviously he's a creator, he creates and creates, but if he
Right.
is a curator of this culture for people researching these things and like putting them if he's putting them in a book, he's curating this knowledge. But if he's presenting himself as a creator of this knowledge, like I researched this and this is how I do it, which is the modern whatever way of doing it, it's different, right? So he could be like, yo, well, this grandmother does this technique, and here's a photo of her in this book, and this is what she does. I learned this from her, right? It could be something like that,
Yeah.
which I guess preserves that appreciation. But see, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky line for sure. But I mean, who are we to kind of dictate that though? Even for us to kind of like we're trying to like create our own values,
Right.
self-identifying, and like really promote our culture out there. But aren't we initially doing the same exact thing, like criticizing all these like people who are potentially trying to like elevate our culture in general?
Yeah, perhaps because I guess you always look at the intentions with which what people are doing. Are they trying to elevate or are they trying to exploit?
Right.
And
Yeah. Do you know about this dude? That is his last name. Andy Ricker, I think.
Andy Richter or
No.
Andrew Zimmern?
Uh,
No.
Well, we already know about him. Like he's already like appropriating the fuck out of like Chinese cuisine. But he Pok Pok, like the Thai restaurant. So Pok Pok originated in like Oregon, like super like regionally eccentric Thai cuisine. So like he would highlight certain regions and have like dishes from that certain region, and that's like his theme of like the restaurant. He did the same thing in New York. Like he opened up a spot in Brooklyn, which has been closed down for like 2 years now. But he's a white guy who just like traveled to like Thailand and just like fell in love. But I don't know. Like he did the research. Again, I trailed at his restaurant too, like during the time where I graduated culinary school, and he had people working in the line like speaking Thai, like for the order. So like the names for the dishes were being called out in Thai. So like for me, like I don't speak Thai. Like I order Thai food all the time, but like I have like my pad see ew and like all this shit that I already know. But like now I'm making food in like Thai kind of like protocol now. So I thought it was cool. Like he's showing appreciation to like the culture in that way because he's operating in the language code. But
okay,
some
that's
critics,
fair.
to some critics who don't know like the industry or
You saw my
they've never
face.
worked there.
I was about to be like,
exactly. Still, right? Like he's still light skinned.
right, because I'm like, is that minstrelsy? Isn't it like the same thing with like The Simpsons? It's like, let's put a white voice behind a brown face, or like But I don't know. But no, there's the appreciation there. Like this is such a fucking tough.
Yeah. So like, what if I just like become famous for like burgers?
You should.
Like a Filipino guy who's like known for burgers. Actually, I'm saying that because there's already a Filipino guy who's actually very, very famous for his burgers. I'm not gonna name his name, but
we'll look him up. I'll look him up.
Yeah, you could research that. Yeah. I'm not trying to put my name out there too much. That's bad for business stuff.
But that's actually that's a good we have been going on real long and I know we've taken a lot of your time, but this was such a good, like you really shed a light on a lot of things that I'm sure people are gonna love. I mean, I love it. I learned a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you,
There's a lot more to kind of like learn in between like the lines of people trying to question authenticity and intention.
mhm.
And if we don't have these types of conversations, we won't really know. We'll end up with like prejudices and just hate. And that's what we don't need right now. We don't need that miscommunication.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, this is the way to be seen as more than what you just do, So
Yeah,
it's like oftentimes when you get in the professional world and you perform a function and you just do that function well, and often people limit you to that function. And
yeah,
they tend to forget that there's a whole human and personality and ethnic background and history behind
yeah,
that function. So
yeah,
this is kind of that's why I think these conversations are very, very
yeah,
important, because people that look
yeah.
like us, don't necessarily get to talk about it. And you can look at our view
And
count.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna come up, man. Don't worry. But like the cultural cognizance, man, like it just has to be more out there. And like I guess people shouldn't be too scared and like have have some sort of like rigidity like
Yeah.
in their identity. Be you, man. Just like be you and make some good food. If people don't like it, whatever. Next, like this is the next ticket line. You
I
know,
will always like the food you make, and you can send me all the leftover food.
dude.
I will eat it all.
Yeah, yeah. Come to my next pop up where I'm appropriating a culture that's
So
not
yeah,
my
yeah.
own.
Let's before we close out, yeah, let's plug that, because I think we're gonna release this episode on
Hilarious.
Wednesday,
Oh, sweet.
which is the 21st. So you can and your pop-up is on the 24th,
Yes,
uh, right?
on Saturday. Yes.
Saturday.
So
So
yeah.
pre-orders.
You can slide in my DMs if you really want to for pre-orders,
Okay.
but you can come in to the actual space itself. Yeah, it's like we're in the height of October for Filipino American History Month, so I am kind of putting my culture out there, but obviously trying to find more creative ways to do it by appropriating another culture.
Ah! You're appreciating the other culture, and
I'm
you're
appreciating. I'm
extending that
appreciating culture.
appreciation to all the people that eat and enjoy the food.
I'm appreciating it because I've actually been to Portugal. I've
I
been to
do
Portland once
Portuguese food because
also.
I've been to Portland. Yo, is that not the most white girl thing I've ever heard?
Yeah, that's my white girl rose. No, but I had a magical 6 hour layover at Lisbon, so now I could do Portuguese food.
Yeah, I ate everything in the airport, even though it was burgers.
Nah, dude, the airport you could put your bags in the airport and just like take a Uber to like the nearest town to get like the best fish in your life. And the seafood. Seafood was amazing, bro.
Damn. Okay. Yo, I cannot wait till
Yeah,
international travel is opened up again. I want to
yeah.
be places.
I think when you travel, you start appreciating more, and then when you start jacking these stuff like without that romanticizing it, then that's the appropriation part. There you go.
There it is.
Boom.
We did it. Oh, damn! I just showed my pit stain. Yeah, we did it.
All good, man. That's from the Khan Academy.
That's how you know we're working hard.
Yeah, working hard, man. We're working on the statistic of math.
So we're gonna.
Thank you, Khan Academy. Shout out to Khan Academy.
Hire me, please, both of us. We know you got money.
I need a job.
Oh man,
Mr. Khan, please.
Mr. God, I'm not gonna say anything about your accent.
Dude, what if he doesn't have an accent? We have to find out.
Yo, I gotta. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna watch one of those videos today because I'm gonna do it. But I will definitely at some point in this week.
Dude, if he has like, I don't know, what would be like a weird accent? See, that's the thing. We could make fun of like the funny stuff of like the language
Yo,
thing too.
what if he's
So,
got like a Minnesota accent? That'd be hilarious.
he's actually Prince. Prince is alive. He's teaching math on YouTube.
I didn't even realize that was a callback. Prince died on 420.
Is that a prime number though?
No, it can't be.
No, dude.
Oh, that's so funny. All right. Well, this is a great episode. We really appreciate you being here with
Yeah,
us.
man.
Francis Smalling.
Thank you
You
for
can
having me. Yeah.
find him at Bad Business Pop-Ups is his company. You can look it up on social media. Can I give your social media handle? You personally?
Yeah, it's not creative. It's Instagram France.
FRANS, right?
FRANS.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you
Instagram.
can find me at yep. And then you can find me at Bad for Business Pop-Ups for more food.
Yeah, and
coming
hit
your
him
way.
up and pre-order the stuff for Saturday or show up on Saturday. And I mean, there's more info on social media.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the good times, man.
Yeah,
And I
this is
look forward
great.
to more content. Yeah, for sure.